Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Stephen. Today I'm doing a bit more fantasy news. Now I'm not going to touch the ongoing saga with the Hugo Awards. It has already been covered a lot elsewhere, and it is as bad as we thought it was. Let's just say right now the Hugos are a hot mess, and who knows what's going to happen going forward in the future, but I'm not going to talk about that today. What I did want to cover was some other news in the sci-fi and fantasy space. Tor Books, part of Pan Macmillan, is launching 2 new imprints. Tor Bramble, a new Romantasy imprint, and Tor Nightfire, a new horror imprint. Tor Bramble will publish between 6 and 8 new hardback titles a year, and it will start on the 14th of November this year, 2024. Tor Nightfire will apparently showcase the entire literary genre from gothic to ghost stories and commercial fiction, and it's going to publish between 4 and 6 titles a year, but it's not starting until January 2025, and both imprints at Tor will be organised and managed by publisher Gillian Green, who will be covering both lists and commissioning titles for them. So Romantasy seems to be here to stay for at least a while. It's an ongoing trend. It's very, very popular. It's been made popular by a number of very big authors who've had huge sales. Some have come just through the traditional means. Some have come through things like Book Talk and other forms of social media. And it seems to be growing. But more interesting for me, I guess, is the fact that they're actually having a dedicated horror imprint. For the longest time, whenever people talk about science fiction and fantasy, horror was in there as well. And horror always felt like the ugly stepchild in a way. Sci-fi traditionally, obviously this is, based on historic ideas, sci-fi never sold as well as fantasy, and horror was probably somewhere in the mix too. It never seems to sell as well or be as widespread as fantasy. Obviously there are some exceptions to the rule. Yes, you can point out the Stephen Kings and the like, James Herbert and so on. But now, with the fact that they're actually dedicating a new imprint to horror, it shows that it is having a resurgence in the popular space in terms of traditional publishing. So that is really encouraging for horror authors. A couple of other bits of news I want to touch on. Peter V. Brett is currently going to be on tour in the UK for his new book, The Hidden Queen. This is the second in his new series, which follows on from the Painted Man series that we've had in the past. And he is going to be doing some tours of the UK and other countries, but that will be in early March. He's going to be going around England and Scotland as well, all the way from Edinburgh down to the south coast. I will put a link down below with all of the dates and information for those who are in the UK who want to go and see him. The Broken Binding are continuing to announce some fantastic new special editions. The latest is the first in a brand new adult fantasy series by YA author Taran Matharu. Dragon Rider is the first in a brand new series called the Soulbound Saga. This is not one of their subscription books, so it is available to buy for everybody, and it's currently available now for those who are interested. So I'd put a link down below as well, so you can check out the Broken Binding website for that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was science fiction and fantasy events in the UK. We do have them every year, and I think sometimes it's a case of people don't even know about them. So I wanted to mention some of the annual ones and then some of the special ones that are coming up in the UK in the next few years. So every Easter, we have EasterCon. This is something that moves around the UK. This year it is in the West Midlands in England, and it's the 29th of March, the 1st of April. I'll put a link down below to the website, so if you are interested, you can check it out. This is one of the smaller conventions. It's maybe 700, 800 people in a hotel or a conference centre, panels, workshops, meet the authors, get books signed, mix with fellow science fiction and fantasy fans. And every year it's a different group of people that organise it, and it moves around the country. The other one is FantasyCon. This typically takes place around September or October. This year it is going to be in Chester, which is in the northwest of England. FantasyCon this year is on the 11th to the 13th of October. I'll put a link down below. Similar sort of thing to EasterCon, but obviously it's more focused on fantasy. The reason it's later in the year, and typically, as I said, it's September, is that we have one of the worldwide events that are coming to the UK. Now, these move to different countries. Last year, this particular event I'm going to talk about was in China. Next year, on August the 11th to the 17th, it will be in Seattle. But this year, Worldcon will be coming to Glasgow, Scotland in August. Worldcon is the World Science Fiction Convention, and this is the 82nd year that it will be taking place. This is one of the really big events. As I said, the ones in the UK, the smaller ones typically might be 600, 700, 800 people. This one is in one of the larger convention centres that we have in Glasgow, and currently the ticket sales are about 6,500 people. I expect the numbers could swell up to 8 or even 9,000 people. Worldcon typically attracts a much more international audience. There is already a list of people of who are going to be attending, and this includes a lot of really big American science fiction and fantasy authors. So if you want to meet the likes of, John Scalzi and Scott Lynch, and you want to see some people like that on panels, get your book signs, talk to them, they will be at Worldcon. And then next year, it will be in Seattle. So this will be the 8th to the 12th of August, and I will put a link down below to Worldcon 2024. So not to confuse Worldcon with what I'm about to talk now, this is World Fantasy Convention. Yes, it sounds very similar, but it's not the same thing. This is another large one that moves around the world. And next year, 2025, it will be on the 30th of October to the 2nd of November in Brighton, England. Brighton is on the south coast for those who are not in the UK. There's already a link up for the website and you can buy tickets. I'll put a link down below so you can find out about this. The World Fantasy Convention is described as an annual gathering to celebrate fantasy and horror. And it has been going for a long time and is a 4-day convention this year. Next year, it'll move somewhere else around the world. For the smaller regional conventions that I've talked about, if you're not able to attend in person, you can't usually get an online pass or an online membership. But for the larger ones, you can. So if you aren't able to travel or you aren't able to afford it, then you can stream the various panels live for Worldcon, and I think for World Fantasy Con too. So they do their best to accommodate people who are unable to travel and get there in person. And of course, if you're in America, there are a lot of these regional events that I've talked about, like the ones that we have in the UK. You have things going on in the East Coast, West Coast, and all across the country, like Mile High Con and things like that, that are worth checking out, that you can travel to, get a taste of the convention scene, meet some authors if you've never been to something like this before in the past. It's definitely worth getting involved and being part of the community. The final bit of news is that How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying, the novel by Django Wexler, has been picked up by Legendary Television to be developed by director Adam Wingard. He's the director of Kong vs. Godzilla. So the rights have been snapped up for this book in a competitive battle, and it looks like they'll be moving forward with making this into potentially a film or a TV series. The interesting thing is the book hasn't actually come out yet. It'll be published on May the 21st this year by Orbit, and the story is described as it follows a young woman from a modern world who finds herself stuck in a time loop within a realm ruled by the Dark Lord. Tired of dying over and over, she finally decides to stage a revolution and become the Dark Lord herself. Now, the director, Wingard, is currently working on a number of other projects at the moment. The sequel to Face Off, which is set to co-write and direct. So I suspect this is something further down the line. But it's great news for Django Wexler having their book optioned. It'll raise the profile of the book. The sales should hopefully increase as well. And it's nice to see another project getting adapted that's original and not another spin-off or reboot or something like that. That's all for today. I'll be back very soon with some more news and another video.